The views and opinions expressed in the following podcast do not necessarily reflect those of the producers, the affiliates, or digital platforms hosting this podcast. All content is for the purposes of education, conjecture, and at times entertainment. We promote inclusiveness and diversity. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Into the Deep with Jay Costa.
Welcome to Into the Deep. I'm Jay Costa. Are you the kind of individual who sees the possibilities in the world around you? And are you the kind of individual that sees the possibilities within someone else? I'm excited about today's guest, Matt Belair. He's the best-selling author of Zen Athlete. He's also the host of the podcast Mastermind, Body, and Spirit, which happened to be #1 in iTunes in over 10 countries. And today, we talk about his training with Shaolin monks and how he applies a lot of his discipline that he learned early on through martial arts to train his brain, to accomplish greatness, and to coach other people on how to unlock their own personal greatness. We go deep and talk about everything from his time in Nepal studying meditation with Buddhist monks to even surviving some near-death experiences while trekking Mount Everest. Matt's traveled the world as a professional snowboard coach. He's trained Olympians. We talk about how he lives his life to also help other people find their passion, their purpose, and how to live a fulfilled life. So, join me as we seek light into the deep with Matt Belair. Enjoy. Feel free to indulge us. For those that are listening, tell us a little bit about yourself, brother.
Sure, man. Well, I appreciate the invite on the show. And, my background, I just like to say I really enjoyed martial arts as a kid. So right away, I was learning about mind, body, spirit, right? Watching all these, Kung Fu masters use their power of the mind to break the bricks and things like that. So I was doing martial arts and was a really curious kid and, an athlete growing up as well. But, when I got into my teenage years, we only had 2 channels on my TV, and one of them would just show these kids starving to death, whatever those commercials were, like World Vision or something.
Right.
So that never really made any sense to me, like how we could have so much abundance here and we can't sort out rice, for these people. It's like they just need rice so they don't die. Like we can't come together as a planet to figure that out. Right. So, that was going on. And then I was also reading books on like consciousness, personal development, spirituality, and Zen, because I'm really interested in consciousness and, what were the limits of human potential, and could I achieve some sort of like next level consciousness, whether it's like enlightenment? That's kind of what I was thinking, right? Could I be enlightened, and what was that even? And so when all my friends went to university, I did 2 years of college, and then I went to Whistler and began snowboarding and becoming a snowboard coach. And what struck me there was that I was using what I learned from martial arts, just some basic mindset stuff about visualization, clearing your mind, and all these different things. And yeah, these world-class snowboarders doing the craziest tricks over the biggest jumps, the most dangerous things, and they didn't even know any of this. So I thought that was very curious. So I became, a snowboard coach, and I taught the mental game of snowboarding and extreme sports, and that kind of grew for a while, and it did about 8 years there. And then I wanted to travel the world because I like to immerse myself with the masters, like the greatest people doing it. So I went to Nepal to meditate with monks because I figured if I want to be enlightened,
best place to be,
the closest place, right? So I go to the Himalayas and do that thing and trek Mount Everest and almost die in a snowstorm, but got through that, which was nice. And then I trained professional MMA in Thailand because I want to be a good practical fighter, just because I enjoy the art of it. I wrote the book Zen Athlete when I was in Cambodia, most of it. And then I went to China and trained with 34th generation Shaolin monks. And that was like my big first travel. And then since then, I've been able to, go to multiple continents, train with 3 different indigenous elders, and do a lot of different experiences and teachers and ceremonies and different stuff like that. Just kind of exploring, like, are these masters on the planet? What wisdom do they have to offer? Where are they? And how can I get that, information and share it with other people, apply it to my life to have a more fulfilling, meaningful life by my own standards, but also share that. And so somewhere along the line, I started doing a podcast, and I'm at like 500 and something episodes. And I guess
Nice.
it's a long story. A lot of tangents. It all feels like one marshmallow right now. I've got a daughter now, so that's like the
Oh,
thing. Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
That's awesome. Oh man, I love that. And I know George is gonna give me some guff because I didn't do this, so let me do it now. Sorry, George. um, Dude, that's awesome. So now, with all of that, with having studied with Shaolin monks, with everything that you've endured through your life, right now you've brought another life into this dimension, if you will. What's going through your mind?
Well, a lot of stress, probably. Looking at the way that the world is working and what's been going on in Canada. I've always been, I think, with what's going on now and on a kind of spiritual side of things, it's everyone has to face their own death, whether they're afraid of the coronavirus or whatever it is. It's like coming to the understanding that you will pass on. And so I've come to that understanding. I'm not afraid of death. I have figured out, though, on further contemplation, that I am afraid of prolonged suffering. So, so that I am afraid of, but not death, because I've had enough experiences through meditation and other different things to see that we keep going. The soul keeps going. There's something greater that we're a part of. So on one part, I'm really excited to share the world and teach her everything I know. And then the other side is like, how is this going to turn out? I'm fine with, myself, but how do it's like, your heart on your sleeve or whatever. It's just so vulnerable. It's such a vulnerable feeling to see, to have this life, and just how crazy and chaotic the world is, and want to have, an environment where they're safe and protected. It can grow and thrive, and just to observe what's happening. It's, kind of nerve wracking at the same time.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I was a step parent for a short period of time, and it was, life changing, but it's obviously different when it is your own child, when you've procreated and now there's this whole other world that's going on and you're trying to protect them at, every cost, but at the same time also wanting them to learn. So, how do you think you're going to approach some of these things, like,
well, she's only 2 right now. So, already, like, I don't wear the mask and do stuff like that. And I try to limit any of this nonsense that's going on as much as possible. And then I'm going to, try to put my family in my position in life where we're safe and we're in a good community, and she has an opportunity to connect with nature and be around like-minded people. And so we'll see how that kind of goes, because Canada is not trending positively right now, but I'm still remaining optimistic. And so I'm just going to do my best to train her to think for herself, to have a spiritual connection, to understand her relationship with God and creation and the environment, and just do the best I can to empower her as much as possible. Definitely not touching public school, in any way. So, things like that. So I'm gonna, do my best to be the best parent I can, to give her the life experiences and knowledge and experiences so that she can thrive in this world.
That's wonderful. It's now I think with some of your background, obviously with the martial arts, that mind, body, spirit, and learning at a young age and implementing that, obviously you've seen the impact that it's had in just athletic, arenas, right? Snowboarding, skateboarding, right? As well. Yep. You coached a lot of folks. Do you feel prepared coaching, a new life, your own offspring,
Yeah, no,
I mean,
yeah, I think, that one, I don't think anybody's really prepared for it. Right.
Right.
He just tried to make as little mistakes as possible, but as far on the athletic side of things, yeah, for sure. We had her skiing out the other day at 2, I'm just pushing
That's
her
awesome.
and training her already. And I'm already training her abs all the time by flinging her around and tossing her. So, kids, they have their own personality, but she's definitely adventurous and has that kind of, adrenaline junkie spirit that I do. So, I think it's gonna be great, but she's also very strong-willed. So I see us butting heads as things go down. So we'll see how the teenage years go. But I'm just gonna do my best to give her like as much love and support as I can, and help her. Yeah, just I think you got to give kids self-worth, right? And all the coaching I've done, even when I was doing high-level athletes, Olympians and things like that, if they were self-sabotaging, it came down to self-worth. They didn't feel good enough to be number one. And it was always like some sort of thing. And so, with the subconscious mind and the limiting beliefs, all of that relates to just not addressing it. It's because you don't focus on it and write it out and understand what it is. where it comes from. Once you do that, you shine light on it, and then you know if it has power over you or not. But people aren't trained or taught how to reflect on those things that are limiting them. But once they do, it releases that charge. It's not so much the experience goes away, whether you had like a self-worth experience or like this limiting belief, a challenge and that created a limiting belief. It's that we just didn't readdress it.
Right.
So it's still there, but it doesn't have that same charge to it.
Right. And I think it's important too, like you said, when you shine a light on it, right, to know thyself, to really get introspective and really learn and shift some of that self-sabotage, because, we see all the distractions that are going on already between, gadgets, the internet, and all these things are tools, but they're not being utilized as tools when there are people utilizing those to distract people and also to just, take money and resources, which is even our attention is a resource. So how do you combat that in your personal life?
Well, that's a great comment. And yeah, I think, your personal attention is the number one most important thing. And that's what they're distracting a ton. So, I've thought about this actually quite a bit over the last year or two, because my job keeps me on the internet to share the stuff that I'm teaching. One of the thoughts that I had was there's so much nonsense in this world, and understanding that, programming and propaganda and all these different things that I studied and recognized. I wanted to put out some positive mental nutriments, as the Buddhists call it, right? So, whatever it's like, whatever you're eating, if you eat KFC all day, you're going to have that experience of not being in shape and probably diabetes or whatever. But the same thing for your mind. If you keep feeding it junk, you're going to get junk output. So my thought was to put out as much positive output as I could. And in doing so, it keeps me online, which I don't like. So if I were not online, I would limit everything. I'd probably chop everything off if I wasn't trying to share this information. And now at this stage, I'm looking to figure out a way to continue to do the podcast and the research in these programs, but be able to outsource everything else, so I actually don't have to look at a screen at all. And some people like Kelly Brogan and others are going so far to just go back to the flip phone. And so, that's what I'd suggest to everybody is, one of the first things I did years ago with Facebook is only follow the pages that were positive and teaching me something. X out anybody that was just talking nonsense. So it was all curated. You can do that with Instagram as well. So you're not scrolling into nonsense. And even if you are researching some of the stuff that's going on and it's pretty dark and challenging, you want to limit that too, right? You want to, be aware. I think that that's important, but then you want to focus most of your time on the solution that you're providing for yourself, for your family, for your well-being, for your community, and all those different things. Because if you just spend, it's like, I don't know, let's say the Ghislaine Maxwell trial that's coming up, for example, all you need to know is like just the basics that something is with pedophilia is going on. I worked on human trafficking. I worked on to bring awareness to the forced organ harvesting that's going on in China, which I didn't know about, which are both horrendous things. But you don't need to know every detail about every case to make the difference, or to recognize it and say, okay, this is something that needs to be addressed. My head is in the sand. I don't know what I can do about it, but I'm aware of it. Now, what can I do? Right. So one of the things could be like, if there are these, people out there which are predators, teach your young to be strong and resilient and smart and connected, and start a youth program or something like that. You know what I mean? That's where you put most of your time. So if they do get in that situation, you're building strong people, and that's what we kind of need, because even the people who have kind of woken up to this, some of them can get stuck at just looking at the negative.
Right. And it's so much easier for a lot of folks. I mean, we're all guilty of it at one point in our life or another. Right. And it's easier to just complain about something rather than, like you said, I love that you pointed out, like, find those solutions. Right. And we're not equipping children any longer like we maybe once did. I felt that I had a different kind of education versus like my nephew. And I'm sure you feel the same way. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like we can agree that when you made that comment on public schools, that's where I got that from. So I didn't mean to assume, so I apologize. But this whole change in curriculum, in that shift in your feelings about things, how can we help show people maybe there is a different way or an alternative way to something than what they're feeling is the tried and true that's almost forced?
Hmm. Well, that's a great question. I just touch on the public schools for a second because it's very clear that they're public indoctrination. And I watched the movie Idiocracy like maybe a few months ago. We were looking for a comedy to watch, and I was like, "That's what's happening. We are actually getting dumber with each generation." And I trained a little bit with Clifford Mahooty, who's a Zuni elder, but he's also a civil and environmental engineer. And he said when he came out of engineering, they started to change the math. So as he was going around all these engineering projects working for the government because he wanted to see how it worked and what was going on. He said as they came out of university, they were getting dumber and dumber where they drop these things, right? And they say, okay, it's great on your paper and in this graph, but it's not going to work in real life. Like that doesn't work in actual reality. And so I think there is a systematic dumbing down of our population, and it's something that we need to be mindful of as a group of people. Now, what were we talking about with the feelings? What the heck was the original question?
Oh, just yeah. No, what are your thoughts? And this is Tangent City, my friend. This is
Oh, good. Yeah. Usually I can roll it. I was like, wait, what was the original one?
No
sweat,
like, man.
I gotta address all that stuff.
It's whatever we're feeling, man. Whatever we got.
Beautiful. That's how I do mine too. So that's awesome.
Like just how can we try and open people up to like the fact that there's maybe different perspectives, right, or alternatives to the things that they feel are nope, it's absolutely got to be this way because whether it's indoctrination, whether it's tradition, right? A lot of people choose tradition versus truth, and that's what we see a lot of, and that's how can we get folks to maybe listen more? That number one, that's a thing, but also to not automatically assume that everybody who's offering a different perspective is a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, because it just turns into that too quickly. So maybe what are some tools that you utilize or you could use to help open people's hearts and minds?
That's a really great question. And, I do a weekly mastermind group. So we touch on a lot of these things. And one of the things I learned from martial arts is you train with each other, right, to get each other better. And also I learned from David Lombard Senepass about these teas, and you sit in a circle and everybody has wisdom, like they bring up a topic on compassion or something and everyone would speak, and it would, at the end, it would be brilliant. So we actually talked about this a few weeks ago. And so some of the things that came up were just understanding that surrender. You have to surrender to like how anyone else is going to act. Because if you're trying to change them and what their perceived attitude is, whether they're, really locked in one position, they're being however they are, because people are dealing with a lot of challenges. People can't go to weddings or their family, all this kind of craziness with, the indoctrination. And I see what they're doing on the television. Then it plays out in the world. They say, oh, well, this thing. And then all of a sudden, all the people who aren't thinking for themselves go do that exact thing and cut family out of their life and don't let them in weddings and all in shame and guilt and do all these awful things. So the first thing is for that is just being in surrender that they're going to have their process, doing your best to give them kindness and compassion. And that's what I learned from, the Buddhist monks, which was amazing because I would ask them all these different questions. And I would teach morning English in the morning, and then in the afternoon I have conversations with older monks, and they would always just any question I asked them, I asked them really difficult questions like, okay, you're about kindness and compassion. What if somebody like rapes and kills your sister? Like, I'm sorry for that messed up analogy, but that's because right. I'm primal. Like I have a spirituality kind of podcast, but like how my mind immediately operates when people are acting in an unjust way is very primal, and it's not kind, and it's angry, and it's violent. That's how I process it. And then through my mom and through the martial arts training and all these different things, I figure out to hold that gap and to be as kind and compassionate in that scenario as I can, right? And not say and do the thing that I think, but I don't think people should be going around in that way and doing those things. So when I asked the monks that, they would always, no matter what messed up question I give them, they would think for the harder it was, the more they think. And then they would say something. It was never like, you do this from some sort of thing. It was like, it would always come back to a beautiful answer of like, my job and my practice is to do kindness. It's not a thing that just you say it. It's like, I would have to try and practice kindness and compassion. And he would say, I wish that would not happen to anyone, but that would be my job. Could I do that? I don't know. Right. They're very honest. It was very beautiful. Now, there's two other things that I think are important. And I'll just say this one first, because the formula for truth will take a second. The number one thing you can do is to be the example and let people be what they're going to be. And the best analogy I can give for this is just imagine the whole world is 500 pounds and they're very overweight and they have a terrible diet. And, they're yelling at you and all this kind of stuff. But all you need to do is be healthy. right? So at one point you've figured out that all this stuff that you're doing is wrong. It's not wrong. It's not helping you live a healthy life. You change the things you need to change. Now you're living a healthy life. You got energy. Your body looks good. You feel good. You got, a clear mind. All these different things are happening. That visual representation is going to be the best thing you can do for them. So now we're onto the energetics. Spirituality you can't see, right? And that's why there's so much nonsense in our field. Like, with spirituality field in general, it's kind of exploded over the last, I was always interested in it, but I feel like in the last 10 years, it's just been really getting a lot of weird stuff. And I love the weird stuff, but I feel like there's a lot of, it's like disingenuous, but white belts claiming to be black belts.
Gotcha.
That's, you know what I mean? It's like,
Well
it's totally
put.
fine to be, want to enjoy it. But in martial arts, who's a white belt, what level you're at from your capabilities. And then the spiritual world, you don't really know. So you can have a good intention, but you still need some years of experience, some trying, you know what I mean? And good intention and a kind of like a track record to, claim, or not even claim, but like to actually be a black belt. You just are. You don't tell people that. You just you have that level of mastery and that level of knowledge. So it's an energetic game. So the more you can do that, and they witness you in freedom and in joy and compassion and with adaptation and all these different things that are concerning them but not concerning you, and just remaining calm. I think that's the best way, is to handle your own situation and your energetics and what you do for a living and all that kind of stuff. So clean your house first, make it the best, most righteous, epic house that you can, right? Which will allow company. You can invite company over to visit it, right? And then allow them to have the craziest experience they want, because that's out of your control. That's what they get. That you get your free will, they get their free will. So allow them to do it. And if they're challenging you, do your best to give them kindness and compassion. Now, the last thing I think is important is something I learned a long time ago called the formula for truth. And it's a very interesting way to perceive the world, because it allows for more listening, as you said. So the formula for truth basically says a few things. Number one is you only have your perspective. I only have my life experiences and all these things that happen. You have yours and everyone else has theirs. You only get one. So that's it. So when you meet someone else, they have another perspective. So now there's two. So what most people do, let's just say it's an X and Y scale. And I like to use the flat earth and round one because it's just like the polar opposite, right? Or Corona is so deadly, or it's not, or Jesus is real, or, that's all nonsense, just polar opposite beliefs. So what you do is say, someone goes, okay, the earth is flat, right? And this actually, the first time I used it was with that. So the person goes, oh no, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. I say, okay. Rather than that, you go, all right, tell me why. You're right. And you start to seek understanding. Oh, the coronavirus is so deadly. Why? Oh, the coronavirus is not as deadly as they say. Why? And so you keep to seek understanding. And so let's say 45 degrees is in the middle, because it's a 0 to 90 scale, right? You got your 45, they got their 45. Well, if you open up to every single person you meet with that kind of inquiry, you're getting 45 degrees of information, or their whole perspective on life, right? And maybe just at like 98 degrees on the scale, you're going to get something that you didn't know. So
Always.
now as you do this as an operating system, you're receiving so much more information than the average person. So your ability to recognize patterns is going to be off the charts in truth and integrity, and the ability to know when someone's lying or deceiving, or a higher quality of truth. And the other thing is to understand with this, a formula for truth is truth evolves. It doesn't just end. It's an evolution. We grow with that. And with each layer, we refine it a little bit more. You can end up seeing, like, I like that image that goes around on Instagram, where it shows like a shadow on a wall, and one shows a square and one shows a circle, and it says, and it's got two different people, and they're both right. They say, no, it's a square, no, it's a circle, because they're seeing shadows, but they're both right. And so, but from a higher perspective, you can see it could go into infinity. So that's why you kind of honor that point of view. Right. And so I feel like if you can just do those things, that's a really powerful recipe for navigating, especially these times, but navigating life in general.
Absolutely. And like you said, you're gathering data as you're going. So who doesn't want to learn, right? I think people get so stuck in just feeling so concrete in what it is. And they forget that whether it's life, whether it's knowledge, whether it's truth, in your point, everything is a breath. It's not this concrete stone. It's moving and flowing and evolving. And it's not this static thing. Right. So I think it's important, like you said, to I love that, really not challenge, but you're asking someone, well, why? Because now you're probing, and now you can actually engage in dialogue, which I feel like hasn't been happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's how, that's why people have told me too. They go, "How do you know that your perspective is like quote unquote right?" And I was like, "Well, I was like, if anybody at any point shares with me a piece of information that makes everything out, it's so good that it shatters everything that I previously thought, I'll accept that. The issue is when I'm having these conversations with people, they don't know anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're regurgitating what they heard on TV, or they'll send me something that's so ridiculous. And I was like,
Right.
well, and so that's the whole thing about why we're not seeing debates about what's going on, and why there's not open dialogue, and why that they're throwing such a divisive nature, because they want to make it impossible for people to have this dialogue. Because if we saw open debates between two intelligent people, one side would be clear. And the only one we did see was Robert Kennedy debate Alan Dershowitz on vaccines a long time ago. And if you watch that, one side is much more compelling because the truth resonates. It's not trying to manipulate, right? Propaganda is manipulation. And when somebody can see through it, it's just so obvious. And so part of the studies that I did was in consciousness, self-hypnosis, copywriting, hypnotic writing, all these different things. And it's just how you can persuade, but I use it for good. I use it to persuade people to believe in themselves, to, break down limiting beliefs, understand their subconscious mind. All this stuff is night and day different for living a free life where you architect your reality, or you're kind of bound into this mental slavery and you don't even know it.
Right. By design.
100% by design.
And folks get so, I've seen it in folks that I know, whether it's some, distant family or even some friends or acquaintances, where they get stuck in these patterns and they're really not able to get out of that. And then it's just this constant either negative downslope, and there's just no open dialogue, and there's just no change for them. And so therefore nothing changes in their world or in their reality, and they're not able to construct anything outside of what's being fed to them. And it's like marketing, where at one point in time where we had the esoteric teachings of like symbolism and allegory to teach lessons and teach people similar to what you're doing by taking these wonderful nuggets but showing people how to look within and make those changes. Ad agencies are using symbolism and tricks of the mind to affect psyche. And then they infiltrate into social media and they run experiments on people, and they okay it by saying okay to the terms and conditions and don't even realize it. So how do we help individuals really start discovering themselves and their purpose?
Well, that's a really great question. The first thing about the propaganda and all these different things, it's good to understand it and, read some basic books. I highly recommend, the basics of neuro-linguistic programming, and hypnosis and propaganda, to see the things they work, how they work, because then you'll know when it's used against you. It's kind of like jujitsu. If you don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to break your arm, or I'm going to choke you. I'm going to do whatever I want, because you don't know what I'm doing. But the second I start to show you what I'm doing, then now you can defend against it. And now there's not a threat for you. So all this stuff is going in subconsciously, right? With this, especially with all the TV, right? And now with the, social media and how prevalent that is, it's just so massive how powerful this is. So people need to understand that. Now, to know who you are and to know your life purpose, I feel like is the most paramount thing that anyone can do. And that's a lot of what I teach, because I've always been curious why people don't go and honor their their inner voice, their intuition. And I feel like my whole life, that's really the only difference between me and most people that's allowed me to travel to all these different countries. These near-death experiences I had. The last one, I was stuck on a cliff, and I had to do a sketchy thing to get out, but it was like me and my partner, and it was pretty close to death. But I was like, holy shit, I had to do something. And if I failed, I was probably going to die. And I thought, oh dear, I was like, maybe my work is done. And I didn't think I didn't have regret at work, because all I'm doing is I say like an awakened person is somebody who stops thinking, what can I get, to what can I give? Like how can I help? And then they stop being victims. They're saying they just accept everything in their life. So I have no means perfect. You know what I mean? I'm always wishing I could be more productive, but I get stuck in these sometimes depression, sometimes other things with what's going on in the world, and I'm not productive. But what I do intend is say, creator, show me a way to be a service. You know, I want to
Mm.
align with the greater picture. Please live through me. What can I do to help? Right. And I'm just saying that thing and I'm intending that thing and I'm kind of doing my best. And, you know, like I've kind of feel like I was a bit depressed this summer and being a piece of crap. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing anything.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, you know, I went through and I hosted this law summit with another friend of mine. It turns out that we had like 5,000 people go through that. We did it for free. It was something that was like, I knew I needed to do it. I took action. And so 5,000 people were really helped. So to try to keep their job or to understand the law or all these different things to help that situation. So I then after that, I kind of realized although I don't feel like I'm being optimal because I like athletics and I like all this different stuff. If I'm not optimal and planned out and, you know, moving in a direction, I feel a bit stagnant. So it's just like a bit of a sign that I was like, okay, the universe is still working through me. You know what I mean? I'm still open to help, right? But you know, I'm still open to be a service. So when the reason why, so I've worked with so many different people, like go to Burning Man, for example, and there's such a crazy environment. And within 2 seconds, people go like, well, how do you like the default world? And because Burning Man's such a shit show, it's so nuts. It's so amazing. Like, you know, and there's some weird, crazy stuff that goes on there too, but I've just had the most glorious times. So it's unbelievable there. And so you go, how do you like the default world? Right. And that's the regular world. And most people say, oh, you know, I don't really like it or whatever. And I'm always just like, well, what do you want to do? It's not hard. Who are you? And it was interesting to do the law summit because every guest said, know who you are. And it was very spiritual. Like the law is somehow spiritual. I recommend people looking through that because, you know, a lot of them reference the Bible and they say the Bible is the contract on the planet. The 1611, not because
King
it's
James.
Christian or whatever. Yeah, because the Queen swears her oath on it. So if you go into courts, every country, Canada, that is under the Queen, they have to honor her oath and their oath to the Queen. She swore it to God. And in that book, it says God gave dominion to land, air, and water to man. So that actually still holds up in court if you really know what you're doing, because there's a lot of tricks and deceit and nonsense in there. I still haven't wrapped my head around it. But the idea is that you were created by the Creator. The Creator gave you the breath of life. So you have the Creator within you to, you know, expand and use your soul and use your will in this dimension, in this domain. And that's a very beautiful and powerful thing. So you got to know who you are. And that's why I think all this stuff is coming out about this, you know, confusing kids to even their gender. Because if you don't know that you were created by God and you can't figure out if you're a man or a woman, how confused are you? If you're very confused spirit and soul and individual, how can you know that you were a perfect divine being created with the Creator in you to do, you know, basically anything you want here in the realm of co-creation? It's not about going to conquer shit. It is to cooperate and experience life with everything in a very beautiful, meaningful way to develop your skills, to develop who you are and all these different things. So, you know, when I go through my coaching and training, you know, I would just suggest people start with this, you know, write down a bunch of the things that you're passionate about. Write down what you would do if you had $1 million deposited in your bank every day for the rest of your life. What would you do with your time? What, you know, if you get all these PhDs, whether you want to learn from individual, who that, if anybody on the planet can mentor you, who would be your top 10 mentors? What are the biggest problems you see on the planet? And so you just start doing the self-inquiry, and that's all it is, man. People just don't do the basic thing. But I've also recognized that when I ask people this question, it's their conscious mind that needs to give the answer. The problem with the conscious mind is it's designed to keep you safe, which is great. But for us to stay safe, we need to eat. And for us to eat, we need to have money. So the conscious mind goes, oh, yeah, what would you do if you could do anything? It's like, nah, you're not going to trick me, dummy. You're not going to kill me, because if we go do that thing that we love to do, we're going to die because we're not going to get any money. So I had this friend who's so analytical. He's like, he would have just said like more savings or something stupid. So I ended up just doing a hypnosis, and hypnosis is simply guided meditation, but it's your frame of reference. And the only thing I changed is I got him to reference it through his heart. And he just gave me the most beautiful answers. And I said, what would you ask him all the normal questions, but his conscious mind would just give me the worst answer. So I just said, okay, you know, your heart's taken over essentially, you know, blah, blah, blah. He gave me the most beautiful answers. He actually moved to tears. And after I did that, I was like, this is interesting. Nothing like this exists that I'm aware of, because I try everything. I like that. If somebody's got some sort of thing in every city, I'm going to try all of them.
Right.
And then I'll just kind of know how helpful they were, and get to experience it and learn more about myself and all kinds of things. So I knew there was something special there, and I started it with a lot of people. The first 10 people cried. One pissed themselves, and one apparently popped out of their body and went to some sort of place and came back. I don't know what happened there, but it was weird. And I think it was just their experience in their heart. It's not me doing anything magical or mystical or waving a wand. It's the way that it's just led into your heart. So your heart begins to facilitate to your dumb brain, because that's what I call it anyway, because the heart sends more signal to the brain anyway, but the intuition is always shutting it off because it's not safe. Right? They're not doing it because it's not safe. But when we can see it and we can imagine it and we can feel it and we can sense it, we're really inspired to move. And that's where the courage comes in to go walk that path. So a lot of people have had these awakening moments, but they didn't have the courage to walk it. And that's the challenge once you're very clear to walk it. And so if anybody wants support, I have so much great stuff like the quantum heart hypnosis people can get, and the soul compass walks them all through that. And it's so concise and so simple and so effective. And all of my stuff, you can pay for it or you can get it for free. Like the Soul Compass I was selling as a course, but I just give it away for my membership. And the Quantum Heart Hypnosis is not very expensive. It's like $97. But I'll give free audios to everyone. Like, you just have it, just friggin' do it, Right. So it's not about the money. It's just about people actually making that commitment. And if they do, they're going to have the experience. And so now they know it's possible, but are they able to walk it? And that's where the challenge comes in, right? That's the hard part, right? Yep. When you're in that heart space, you've got it and it's clear, but then you got to go kind of make that leap of faith, and it's terrifying. But everyone who does it, the universe always responds. When you are being who you authentically are, who you came here to be, the universe always responds. And the universe will also respond if you're not being who you're meant to be, and it'll respond through disease and getting your ass fired at a job, and you see it as negative to send you back to ground zero to try again, because everyone's just putting the material before who they are.
And it goes back to, I'm so sorry to interject. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, go ahead. Yeah. I could get carried away.
No. This is great. It reminded me when you said that of like why there are white belts posing as black belts. They're not putting the work in, but they're putting the cart before the horse, right? And they're not doing the work. And in that work sometimes is having that faith to actually walk in that path of what you and who you are. And that's so challenging for people to be able to do that, like you said, but to be able to become who we are and who we're meant to be and why we're here in this flesh suit, how and why?
Well, when you're walking the path, one of the things I was thinking from what you're sharing is that it's just that inner voice that knows the thing you're supposed to do. You just keep listening to that one over the money one. That's it, all day, every day. And that's how you become who you are, and you earn yourself a black belt, because there's going to become bigger and bigger leaps of faith. But at some point, you're not even worried about it, because you've watched the universe respond on all these smaller ones. The universe will respond again, because what you're doing is for other people. When you are who you are, you master your skill and you share that with your community in the world. That's it. It's always cooperative. But what will you get? I got a friend mine is a wonderful person, and met him at Burning Man 2, and very smart, massive heart, and living the dream in Los Angeles as an investment banker, making all the money. He's like, yeah, I'm unhappy, but I'm living the dream. I should be happy. And I was like, well, why don't you just change it? And his brain couldn't really handle that. But after a couple of years, he did, and he traveled, and he said he was the happiest he ever was. And then he went. I said, the Matrix will always take you back. Matrix takes him back, making more money than he was. And we'd recently spoke, and he's like, yeah, I feel like there's something a little bit missing again. And when we're conversing, it's just like, I know, for me anyway, and there's probably multiple ways and multiple perspectives, but from what I've observed, if you're constantly trying to make this relationship with money where it's about putting the money first and not who you are first, it's a different way to navigate life. You can do it, but I don't think there's the same level of fulfillment. It's like, who are you really? How do you develop those skills? How do you put everything you are into that and then share that with the world or figure out some way? But the thing is, you don't know what you're going to get back, but I promise you'll get back enough, right? Yeah. You'll get back enough, 100%. But people, they want these other things. And I think you can marry the two, and be abundant, but I'd rather be, in a lower level of abundance, or have what I need and do what I love and make a massive impact in the way that I want to make an impact, then have tons of abundance and live just for me, and then kind of put that, service and who I am on the back burner, make a little bit of impact,
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And again, it really comes down to like, there's that fear of losing out, the fear of missing out or not having enough of something. And then, it almost seems like it's guided by wanting to have this, for some, and, a lavish lifestyle or, something that they can't afford. And they're always, always, always trying to attain these things for status. And they're feeding the not good ego, right? The tyrannical king or queen ego that is, making them stay off of that path of who they are. Because like you said, if we can do what we love, but we don't necessarily live with abundance, but we're doing what we enjoy, then if we have everything we need, then, I mean, that's in my opinion, in my definition, that's success. You don't need to have a ton of it. If you're living your happy life and you're who you are and your true self, and you're doing those things that you want to do, that is success.
Yeah, 100%. And the distinction too, like if you have a family and you need to support, there's nothing wrong with a quote unquote regular job or something that pays the bills.
Right.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The idea is just don't give who you are a zero. Like if there's something that you want to do, if you're content there, like the way of the peaceful warrior, the master is a gas station attendant. He's like, oh, well, if you're this master, why are you just a gas station attendant? He's like, I get to talk to everybody. I like my job. It suits me. And if that's genuine for him, then perfect. That's totally fine. As long as you're being honest with who you are. And I have a recent, story with this. I had a buddy I hadn't seen in a long time. We get together and we usually drink a bit of scotch and play the UFC video game. And so we're drinking the scotch and, he says to me, I haven't done anything I was really proud of myself in a long time. Cause I usually talk to my friends about deep stuff. I like, fine with the nonsense talk, but I like to, know how they are. And I was like, well, what would you want to do? And I go through the series of questions. He's like, yeah, I'd like to build custom cars and all this kind of stuff. Cause he's a mechanic and, loves cars and all this different thing. And I said, hey buddy, I was like, you can do that. You provide for your family. You should be proud of everything you've done. Just don't give it a zero. You know what I mean? Just keep it on your mind and see if you can put a little bit of effort towards it. And, he's been in the same spot that he has and he's still happy and that's fine. But I go to the gym, a couple months ago and I'd known this guy for a while. We got to chatting. This guy was a mechanic, wanted to build custom cars, started to build custom cars. Now he only builds crazy cars and trucks that he wants on his own for as much as he wants to work or as little as he wants to work and makes great money. So the only difference is that guy didn't stop moving towards it. Right. That's it. Right. And so it's just being honest with yourself, because the more that we, really engage with who we are, I think the universe wants us to be successful at it and put that out into the world, right? It's your gift to everybody else. And then there's also the other perspective that I like from the indigenous teachers that I've had is it's like, you don't even need to have a life purpose. Your life purpose is just to exist, just to be alive, just to be a part of all of nature. You are so unique. The fact that you are just here is beautiful and it's enough. And that's one of the issues. We got to complete this thing or achieve this certain thing to be enough. And it's a never ending game. It'll never happen. And I give the example to, people that I coach is like, okay, just imagine you got a 3-year-old or you were 3. It's like, are you enough when you can ride a bike? Or are you, I was like, okay, are you enough when you get the training wheels off? Are you enough when you graduate, grade 8? Are you enough in high school? Are you enough when you graduate university or you get your first job or your first promotion or your first house? And then somewhere in that area, we feel like we've grown up and know some shit, but really we're just kids. And our inner dialogue and our inner voice is actually a child. People say it's 7 years old. So you want to, talk to your inner voice, talk to yourself like it's a child, because it kind of is. It's very sensitive and it's very raw and it's very innocent, and so it kind of hardens over the years. So the point is we're incomplete and we're always going to be evolving. And, we want to figure out, can we go along the journey and be whole, perfect, harmonious, and full of self-love, like an oak tree that's, is the oak tree good enough when it's just a seed, or when it sprouts his little first, whatever trunk, or when it's first leaf, or first 1,000 years, right? So it's just this process of life that we get to engage with. So if we can learn to have more powerful frames of how we navigate existence, it's going to give us space, it's going to give us power, and it's going to give us more control in a chaotic world.
100%. Very well articulated too. I love that. It's crazy I hate to use the word crazy, but it's so foreign when you step out and think about, why wouldn't we be ourselves? We get so caught up in all those other things. And it's as simple, we can say it's as simple, but it's not, for a lot of people. It's just a simple thing as X, Y, and Z. When did you personally, when did you feel like, okay, and obviously it changes up, right? It evolves, our purpose evolves, or who we are just evolves. I guess what kind of led you on a path of wanting to help others and feel like, this is why I'm here. I'm really going to help other people.
Well, I think you said something really spot on just before, saying like your life path evolves through the skills that you have and the experiences you have. And so, I give the example that, let's just say we're in the ocean and everybody's just following the school of fish, or we're on a boat. Let's just say we're boat and we're just like a school of fish following everybody. Now, when we start, and that's creating life by default. So that's where you grew up, the opportunities you have, the most amount of money you can have, probably for the least amount of effort, is most people, right? So, right, the cushiest job you can have, the least amount of effort to provide for yourself, to have a quality of life. That's how most people think. They just create life by default. But when you begin creating life on purpose, you start to figure out what your values are, who you are, the things you want to experience, and you start steering that boat or canoe, and you start paddling in that direction each and every day, with each and every action, each and every intent, each and every journal, each and every project, each and every prayer. It's all a paddle in architecting your life deliberately. It's a beautiful process, but it's scary because you break away from the herd and now you're alone and you don't know what you're going to experience. And so now this is where the creator in life interacts with you. It might give you these things and challenges for you to, experience and develop your skills, whatever you need to know to get to that next level. And so when we start doing that, it evolves over time because we don't know what we're going to accomplish. We don't know where we're going to go. So it's more of a direction. Most people don't know if they're going north, east, south, or west, right? So once you know if you're going north, then you figure out northeast, then you want to dial it in. Like, I'm going in the direction of 364.01. That's my direction. I don't know where I'll end up. I don't know all the things I'll experience, but I know this is where I'm going. And that's architecting life deliberately. And that's about knowing who you are, how you want to grow, and how you want to contribute to this world. Very simple things. And then walk in that path. And so for me, I used to think that I thought like everybody else. I thought that, and it was only when everybody was going to university and nobody was thinking about traveling and nobody was asking any good questions that I thought, I was like, what do you guys want to do? Right. And like, I don't know, we're just going to go to university. And I was like, you have no idea what you're going to spend all this money. You have no idea what you want to be, what you want to do. No one is talking about traveling. No one is talking about what they want to make of themselves, what they want to experience in this world. I was like, this is odd. Like,
it is odd.
What's going on? So it doesn't make any sense. So you're just going to go 40 hours a week, 2 weeks off a year. And that's going to be your life. And I was like, there has to be another way. And so for me, I just always felt like there was something wrong with this system. And I gradually learned more and more all the things that were very wrong, and then moved towards, the things that I wanted to experience, do, and achieve in my life.
Right on. What was your first dipping of the toes into the spirituality? Was it for some folks, it's, an organized religion that was, a tradition within the family. And then some people kind of branch out. What was your first dipping in the toes? And then how did that evolve?
Yeah. So for me, I think I was always spiritually inclined, right? My family were Christians and we went to church until I was about 10 or so, but it felt not complete to me. In my teenage years, I was reading books, a lot on Zen, a lot on Buddhism, a lot on consciousness and enlightenment and things like that. And I always felt like there was a creator or something bigger. And so it's, meditation and things like that. And so I was always reading these books on how to know God or reach enlightenment and studying different various religions. I ended up going to the Parliament of World Religions 5 years ago with a Native American elder friend of mine. And so I just always had this inclination to know what was going on here and have a connection with the creator. And over time, that understanding has evolved, and I think it's an infinite mystery, and I think it has to be here, so we have
Mm,
free will, because if we knew the answer, if we knew the certainty, it wouldn't be a test, whatever this is, and we wouldn't have free will if we knew the answer. Everything, it would be less exciting if you always knew you made the shot and everything were always guaranteed. So I think that's a part and parcel and process for the life. So for me, that's been like my main goal. And even with the clarity of the last few years of what's going on, I would always think about the podcast and how I want to put things out, and like what's my purpose. And I like, because I continually inquire, so I'm trying to be helpful because I'm still here.
right.
I've almost died like 4 times, like I'm still here, so I want
Man.
to do the best I can. And recently I came to the conclusion that my intent is to connect as many people to the true creator as possible.
Mm,
And after doing over 500 podcasts, reading hundreds of books on spirituality, doing all kinds of crazy things like going to Nepal, trekking Everest, sitting in meditation for months, trying every weird thing under the sun. I don't know who or what the creator is. I don't know if it's within any of the Bibles, but I think they all speak about the one. I think
mm,
it's like this energy source, this unknown, the unspeakable, but it's your intent to connect with that. And an easy one would be life, cooperation, harmony, love,
mm,
all the good tenets. And so I want to steer towards that, and intended to connect with whatever that force is. Now, all the stories, uh, they can be interpreted from different people in different ways, and they
sure.
could all be true and they could all be false because there's a lot of deception. I don't know. But I do believe that there is a creator. And I think that there's truth in a lot of these books that steer us. And for those people who understand how to read it and interpret the message of what they're saying, it's your connection with that creator. You don't, like when I was at the Parliament of World Religions, there's like 230 different religions. And my elder told me, you don't need a broker to God. You don't need somebody, to say, hey, now you're connected. No, it's
Right.
you are always, you were and always will be connected to the creator. You're a perfect divine soul as you are in a forgetful state. That's
Mm,
what I believe to be true at this time. And I have experienced some really profound things that are, beyond words. And it just brought me into that feeling of infinity. And like this, there's a force that loves me unconditionally, like your mother's love times 100 billion. Like I felt that directly. And I don't
mm,
know what that is, but it sure felt like something beyond creation, something so powerful that it can't be comprehended or even put into words even close. Like if you just play back those
yeah.
stupid words to try to try to describe what it was, it's just like you can't do it. And so whatever that force is connected to me, and so I
Mm,
want to honor that to the best of my ability.
100%. I couldn't agree more. It's no wonder why there's a myriad of names to try and describe what it is. Some obviously some cultures won't even write it. They can't comprehend. It's beyond any realm of human thought. It can only be felt, like love, and that
Yep.
that, that unconditional love, that peace there. Why is it so hard for people to just accept and love and unconditional love each other when we can just look at a tree, recognize that it's a tree and it's different than the one next to it, or a blade of grass? What's so different about looking at a human being and feeling something from them and not just loving them for who they are?
Well, I think that goes back to what we were originally talking about, is all this, these psychological traps that we've been fed, and all
Mm,
these paradigms and frames of the world, very competition based, very judgmental, very egoic. And so all of these things are uh, celebrated in a way, right? You
mm,
look at the celebrities and what they're putting out there, they're celebrated.
yeah.
One of the TikToks that came out, I kind of posted, there's this kid that gets to go to the White House for Joe Biden. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And it's like a guy that I think he's gay and he's got like these long nails, and it's just a very confusing video the whole way through. And it's
Mm,
this whole kind of like transgender weird stuff they're pushing on the kids. But this is like somebody who is, they're saying this is what gets you to the White House. This is a celebrity. If you're a young male, this is what you want, because you're going to be celebrated by the president of the United States. That's your role model.
mm,
That's what you need to be to get to this high level of success in this world that everybody wants, right? So we're looking at these ideas being pushed on these kids en masse. So it's very confusing. Like that's why in part, I wrote Zen Athlete. I thought about writing a few different books. And the reason why I decided to write that one, because I was going to write like The Art of Self-Mastery or something like that, not have it in sport. But my thought was the three biggest influencers on the planet are athletes, musicians, and actors. And athletes can influence a lot of kids. And so for these athletes, get a hold of this training and say, hey kid, like if you know about meditation and you know, all these different facets, you can create your life in a very powerful way. So it's all everything I've learned through self-mastery, a very simple way that everybody can understand. Now, basically what I teach is get you connected using quantum heart hypnosis or something like that, or this very simple process. And now we know for sure what that signature, what that energy is of who you are, what you want to create. Then you use all of your will to go create it. And so I would teach people this in sport, where we would have to create their reality through one single trick. So one example would be this freestyle motocross guy, Brody Carmichael, reached out and he fell on a front flip. And I said, hey man, I heard you're good at coaching. I fell on a front flip and I want to be the fourth guy ever in the world to land one. And I want to do some variations that have never been done. I was like, sweet. So we jumped on a call, and, you know, his mental game was pretty strong and offered a few upgrades here and there. And I said, okay, man, like you can read my book. It'll help, right? Because you're an athlete, you should read it, but you don't have to. And I got a course. It'll help you. You can do it. It'll help you, but you don't have to. What you have to do is you need to visualize that trick, 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day, every day until you know you can land it. There's going to come a point where you know that you can land it. When you hit there, go ahead and do it. So in my stuff, it's all done for you, really basic. Anybody can do this. So he makes his own guided recording, put my front and back on there with a bit of soundtrack. And it's just because people don't know how to quiet their mind. That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. We're just rehearsing this thing because people aren't trained to quiet their mind because the mind is nuts. But guided meditation can help you focus it. That's all. It's so simple. Yeah. So 3 weeks later, he lands the front flip. 3 weeks after that, he lands the world's first front flip heel clicker. On a motorcycle. So it's a motorcycle trick for those guys who don't know. And 3 weeks after that, lands the world's first front flip friggin' Superman on a motorcycle, and wasn't even practicing on a foam pit. He was going around speaking in the schools, trying to inspire kids and stuff, and just sticks it. And it's unbelievable. And so he used that principle to manifest something that had never been done into reality. So if we marry that energetic signature of who we are, the direction we want to go, and put 100% will towards it, using those frames that you have, those tools, you will be successful over time. Right. There's no way you won't be. And even if you weren't successful in a way that you wanted, if you died, you'd be proud of yourself. You'd be like, good job, because you were working diligently on something meaningful to you. You're going to, when you die, and as I said, about 40 death experiences, your own mirror that comes up. It's like, who are you? Were you honoring who you were? Were you honoring your life force? Or did you allow distraction, deceit, deception, greed, lower level materialism to guide your decision making? And that's the whole thing, right? This material, I need this, at least this minimum material to move in this direction. And so so I think that's a very powerful way for us to operate, and it's not that complicated. It just takes some clarity and some courage.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. It really is a positive mental attitude to achieve anything, right? Fortunately, I grew up with parents that said you could put your mind to anything, you can accomplish it. It's your best friend or your worst enemy. And always, always, always focus. Use your imagination, and I couldn't agree more with that. There was something I wanted to touch on that you had said with the materialism. How can we possibly get individuals to realize that, we see it all the time, social media, right? It's designed, there's a lot of ads on there. There's sponsored posts, there's this, and it's a constant bombardment of somebody trying to get your attention or your money or this or that, using your resources. How do we get folks to disattach themselves from chasing that materialism of stuff or things or status, and actually get them to see that those things are fickle, that they just keep chasing things that change over time? How do we get people to focus on the important things, in your opinion?
That's a really great question. I'd say the first thing is just for the person to do an inquiry on what's most important to them. What is understanding what your values are, what is truly most important to you. If you're looking for, material objects or to be perceived in a certain way to feel fulfilled, you never will be. And one of the other things that I'll often talk about when I'm coaching is that if there's anything you need to know, be, do, or have, that's preventing you from being fulfilled right now, it doesn't matter what it is, because it will change to something else.
Yeah, man.
It's an infinity. If there's one thing, I just need to lose a bit of weight. Cool. Nah, it's infinity. No, I need this new car. No, it's infinity. No, I just need this job. No, it's infinity. So that's the first one that popped up. But the second time you get that bunk, it will change like a magic box. So how can we be whole, harmonious, fulfilled, and and full of self-love? And I don't know the answer to that. I just know that that's the aim, and it's a reminder, like in Buddhism, it's a practice where you come back to that self-love and self-commitment where, not self-love in a weird way. People don't understand that. I think it's like self-acceptance, accepting yourself. And it's weird because we can love our animals and our brothers and our sisters and our mothers with infinite love. But when it comes to ourself, it's this massive resistance for most people. So just know that, whatever you got to do to kind of contemplate. And I think that people need to do their own self-inquiry. I think journaling is a very powerful process for people, to just go into and really dive into and just, work on yourself. So the materialism thing is like, it's just that understanding, that nothing material is going to change how you feel on the inside, although it's great to have and it's fun. Right. But everybody who's achieved great material success knows that it's fleeting. I love Mike Tyson, and he's like so badass. He's got this podcast and he'll talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Making all the money and how crazy his mind was and still is. And he's very vulnerable and raw now. And, but like that guy is a spiritual teacher because he's honest. He's just honest. That's it. So just be honest with yourself and do your best. And that's the thing. We're not perfect. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. And so, just give yourself a meaningful aim, because if you're going for that stuff, it's I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how to fix it. Just to do an inquiry and like why you want that stuff, because it doesn't matter,
How do we encourage people to be honest, not only with themselves, but also to the people around them?
I think the first one is being honest with yourself, and then be honest with others, and just being a person of an integrity, right? Well, I think out there, everything is just so complicated. We don't have these simple values, these simple ways of being. It's all complex and flashy and distorted, right? The more I get older, the more I just want to live in a small mountain town and teach martial arts and snowboarding and have a comfortable home. Right. If it is a massive home with a dope skateboard park in my house with and all this,
awesome.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yes. Right. And maybe one day I will earn that from my work. You know what I mean? Maybe one day that will be given to me. I'll earn that, but I can be, I'll be as fulfilled in that house as I am now, depending on my spiritual progress. And if I can get to the place of full acceptance and love, it's not going to matter the thing that I have. It's just a beautiful addition to who I am and what I get to do and what I get to experience. Because even if I had that, then I'd be like, well, who can I share this with? Right? Where are the kids? Where are the people? Where are the friends? Where, that's what I would want it for. Get people to come over and have fun with. And so, yeah, man, I think it's just being the best person you can, and being easy on yourself. Everyone's so friggin' hard on themselves. I remember this Wayne Dyer book I was reading once, and he's a great teacher. I liked him. And he said, he's playing tennis with his buddy once, and his buddy misses a shot, and he goes, "Oh, you idiot." And Wayne goes, "Hey, don't talk to my friend like that." And his buddy's like, "What are you talking about? You're crazy." But we do that to ourselves. And so yeah.
I used to be guilty of a lot of negative self-talk for years and years and years. And you don't realize the damage it does and what you have to do to, like, I wouldn't ever talk to anybody like that. Why am I talking to myself like that? It's not cool. So I get what you mean by like that self-love, but not in like the weird way that everyone gets all freaked out. We're not talking narcissism. We're talking like actually honoring yourself and, being
even kind, right? Kindness and compassion. There's a Buddha quote like that says, you yourself as much as anyone in the entire universe deserves your love and compassion, or your kindness and compassion. Right. And again, it's a practice, right? These things are practices. Right. I remember reading the book on Zen, And they'd always say, live in the moment, live in the moment, live in the moment. Any good spiritual teachers say the same thing, live in the moment. It's true. Gotta live in the moment. I get it. So I try, and then 2 seconds later, I'm out of the moment, and then I'm out of the moment for 9 weeks, and then I'm reminded on my
Right.
podcast I'm supposed to live in the moment. Try again for a second, and so I used to do these so I'd be like, okay, well, when I go to the bathroom, and I'd set up these triggers where I was gonna become more aware, and that's really the key. You can train yourself into awareness, and
Right.
like if I go to Zen Athlete, I was trying to think about if I taught this to kids in schools, how the simplest way I could break it down, what I was actually teaching. And so if you go to shoot a basketball shot, if you clear your mind before you shoot it, right? That's what you say. Hey, clear your mind. Fundamental shift in consciousness and the quality of your life and the quality of mental freedom you have right there. Person can clear their mind and can. Then visualize shot going in. This teaches them you influence your reality. Third thing is you miss that shot terribly, right? You don't always succeed. So what's the most powerful and positive perspective you can have in that scenario? How do you respond to life? How do you respond to what's happening to you? That's where your power is. And so then it comes back to, can you be whole, complete, harmonious, and full of self-love wherever you are in the progress? And miss the shot, make the shot. Doesn't matter. You stay the same. That's really the core of what I like to offer to kids and offer to people. And again, those things are a practice, but that's a fundamental shift for navigating your life and freedom. Just the awareness of what you're thinking and what you're feeling and what you're doing. If you're constantly just being aware, that's night and day for most people, just fully on autopilot, shut off, just kind of being steered by propaganda. Basically, they're basically hijacked. That's the virus. And they got these, you hear about these theories of like these little spirits or these energies, right? Hijacking people. That's essentially what it is, right? They're fast asleep and their body's just working, but they have no conscious will or intent. They're kind of shutting off and numbing because it sucks so hard and they're not choosing any of it.
That it's a couple of things in there that I totally resonate with, is that like taking that moment, maybe that breath before that shot. So as a kid, I didn't do many sports at all. The one thing I did do, my father got my brother and I into archery. So archery was our thing. And he would always remind me, and I started at 6. So it was like trying to teach a 6-year-old how to like, hey, relax the mind, calm the mind before the shot, like visualize the shot. And that was like all lessons he was really trying to instill in my brother and I early on, just so that we were paying attention, so that we were aware of things and not just getting distracted by all the static in the peripherals, So I like that you said that. And there was something else in there too, that it's interesting that, you talk about like hijacking a consciousness, right? And just this constant need for polarization, constant need for division, getting people away from each other. It just feels like just keep everyone separate, just keep compartmentalizing things. Everyone just hide in your corner, and then this just fear mechanism, which then creates this anxiety. So then now we're not living in the moment, right? We're either thinking ahead and getting anxious about it, or maybe a little depressed or anxious about something bad that happened already. So it's this constant, whether it's polarization socially, politically, or even mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Why?
Yep. Well, that's another great question. And I suffer just as much as anybody else. There's a great quote from one of the Stoics. I think it was Marcus Aurelius saying, we suffer more in our minds than we do in reality. Men suffer a greater amount more in our minds than we do in reality.
Right.
And in the Bible, I got a lot more into the Bible recently because of the Law Summit and everything I was trying to learn there and all the references. Realized I hadn't even read it all the way through. Like I kind of read like quite a bit of it in my younger years and bits and pieces, but not a full front to back read through.
Sure.
So going through that and a lot of the quotes, you pull up like Bible quotes on fear. And, it's weird because I'd reference like the Bhagavad Gita, I'd reference the Vedas, I'd reference everything but the Bible because I was like adverse to it for whatever reason. But man, that book is really spot on with just understanding good versus evil. And so one of the verses, it says, give not any attention to the worries of tomorrow because there's enough for today. Something like that, you know what I mean? And it also, I'm looking at the food shortage and things like that. And there's a quote on that that just says
The birds.
The creator cares for the fowls in the sky and all these different things, don't you think it will, he will care for you? And so just a very fascinating perspective to have when I'm kind of stuck in that, because like I said, it's been trending negatively and I'm able to kind of see what's going on. But ultimately, it's always been a greater thing. This whole world, it's always been out of our control. Everything's always been out of our control. We get a little tiny bit that's within our control, and that's our ability to respond to our current situation and what's happening. And so if we can connect and like hardwire or harness ourselves to creation, our creator, and what is good and what is right, and continue that. And if we walk into harm, maybe that'll happen, but we could also walk into harm by trying to play it safe and selling our soul. And that's what I think is happening here, is that they can corrupt our minds, and they do, and they can corrupt our food and poison it, and they do, but we have to corrupt and poison our soul. We're the ones who have to actually consciously choose that. And so that's what I feel like the main battle is here right now.
Right. I couldn't agree more. We're the last front, ourselves, who we are, on our own psyche, our own consciousness, right? We have that ability to say, no, this is where it stops, and like some call it spiritual warfare, some, whatever you want to call it, and to have just the wherewithal to know, like, wait a minute, you recognize if something doesn't seem right, something seems off. And then how do you react to it? What do you do?
100%. Yep. That's it. So it's different for everyone, right? It's funny because I do the coaching call, and I have people from all over the world that join this coaching call mastermind that I put together. And some people haven't even touched this. I got people in Montana, in Mexico, and Costa Rica, and Florida traveled around. They basically had none of this. And meanwhile, I got a buddy in Australia that's like, got fired from his job, me just getting hammered over here in Ontario. Damn. So I was like, what a wild ride this is, and I'm very confident we're going to come out the other side, because I do know quite a bit about, like I said, I want to know why we sold war. It made no sense. So, you go into the elite and all this kind of nonsense that they architect, but they have to conquer the United States, and that's not happening. It's not going to happen. They have to conquer the United States, because you have the First Amendment and you have the Second Amendment. You can actually defend yourself. But this is already not working. You know what I mean? Everyone is just like looking. And by the time it gets to your community and your front door, people have seen enough. Be like, no. We've seen that play out. We're not having this here. Hey, Joe, Mark, Tina, who's ever in our local municipality, not happening. You know what I mean? We're coming to your house, not happening. Right. And anybody wants to enforce that, okay, good luck, because all of us are armed. You know what I mean? Like, no, so there's no way that they're conquering the states. And if they don't conquer the states, this doesn't work, because it's global.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's what you have to endure in the meantime.
Right. Yeah.
Depending on where you are.
Absolutely. And all we can do is just stay steadfast and trying to put positivity into the world, how, you had said, and that's what I try to do, and I've, for years, I played music, and I toured, and that was how I put positivity out there in what I did lyrically, musically. And, everything obviously has changed, cancel tours, cancel shows, and then you just have like this time to kind of reflect, and even just to kind of be motivated to do something like George saying, like, you really should start a podcast. You have a lot of, great ideas. And so, what, leap of faith, because it happened in this like weird serendipitous way where he said it and my girlfriend said it at the exact same moment in time. She was telling me, oh, you should have a podcast. And he's texting me, you should start a podcast. And I go, okay, I guess I'm going to start a podcast, and it's just more about just having great conversations with great people whom I admire their work and what they're doing, like yourself, and sharing that positivity so that we can raise the vibration for this world around us, so that people can maybe start seeing things a little bit clearer.
Well, that's beautiful. And you're a phenomenal podcast host. So if you're new, then you're great. And you've got the mindset, the experience, the dialogue, and the wisdom to do a great job. So this has been a pleasure for me, just conversing with you. And, what you just shared there, I call those universal winks, right? And you're a person who honors their intuition. You just knew it's two things You then thought about it and it felt right. So you just did it.
Right.
That's it. Right. And then the intent is something helpful. That's it. That's
That's
all
all
we're
you
trying to
need.
if everybody can just kind of participate a little bit in that idea rather than numbing out and just doing stuff to pay the bills, because a lot of jobs are harmful, right? A lot of jobs don't do anything positive for the community. So that's a challenge. How do we put food on the table? So it's not to disrespect anyone's way of life. It's just to say, don't give who you are a zero, because the more you hone that in, you begin to master that craft and whatever it is, or the art form, there's going to be a way for you to put that out, and the whole community in the world will be grateful to receive it. But you yourself, when you die, because you're going to die, you're going to be proud of yourself. That's the most important thing. So it's harmonious with everything and all of creation, because that's what you were put here to do. That's who you came here to be. That's who you want to be. Right. So it's you honoring yourself. And so that's the most beautiful thing. Now, what you get, that's the mystery, but you'll always get enough. You'll always get enough. I see homeless people all the time. They get enough,
Absolutely.
they're not. So, you'll be fine too.
Yeah. Faith of a mustard seed.
100%.
That's awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much. Can I just, beforehand, if you have any, if you had to say top 3 maybe reading recommendations that you would suggest to folks?
Sure. Yeah, I am a big fan of reading lots of books. So it's usually like whatever I've read recently.
Right on.
But, I always recommend to anybody that I coach to read a basics of NLP, neuro linguistic programming, just to understand how your mind works, because it goes into language patterns and all these different things, because then you'll see when they're used on you, because they're friggin' effective. Mm-hmm. Right. So if I say, don't think about a pink cat, or try not to imagine the American flag on fire, your mind has to imagine that. And what they do is they actually create these storylines to create the emotions, because if I tell you a negative story with wild emotion, you'll feel that. So I'm going to do it. I'm sorry. But so if I say, just imagine I'm over here and I have a beautiful little kitten. It's so cute. Right. And all your listeners, just imagine I got this nice white kitten. It's so cute. Now I grabbed his neck and I just stabbed him in the guts. And he's screaming, he's crying, he's bleeding everywhere. And it's just so horrible. I hate doing that. But the other reason why I do that is because if you had to hear me, you feel sick. You feel like it's so easy to do with a negative story. You didn't choose to go, oh God, that's awful. Why the hell did you even say that? Right? Your body just does it because you have empathy. Right? And so they do this to make you afraid and fearful and all these different tactics. So you can do the reverse. And like with your music, I imagine you create positive stories, positive imagination, empowering stories that create a different feeling. Right. So neurolinguistic programming shows you how to reverse engineer and architect that. You see when it's being used on you, so you can be aware of that, right? So you can step back, you can reframe, and you can just kind of null it and take it away. So there's that one. Any basics of neurolinguistic programming would work. I think Zen Athlete's a great book because it's very simple on how to create your life. It's like, I've read a ton of books, and what I want to do is simplify how you create your reality. Right. So it's Zen Athlete, but it could be Zen Music or Zen Business. Use that same framework, because that's for me when I read a book. Like I'd read so many peak performance sports psychology books. I want to know how to and what do I do for how long and map it out. And so that's what I did in that book. I mapped it out. So you really know. And then for the autobiography of a yogi is a good book, but there's a crazier series called The Life and Masters, the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East. They're kind of hard to get. Bear T. Spalding. They're such an interesting read. They say they're true. I don't know, because it's autobiography of a yogi on steroids, and they're very, very interesting books. Oh, and then because I'm recently reading the Bible, read the freaking Bible.
Hey,
1611 King James. No one ever says that. And I'm going through and some of them are like the book of Matthew, and some of them are friggin' phenomenal. Genesis and Revelations are crazy. I don't even want to read those right now, but I did. They're phenomenal. And then there's some books, like I'm reading one right now. I'm like, what is this even talking about? So I'm just powering through, and then maybe it'll make sense later. What is this? What is this even talking about? But some of them make, such perfect sense. So those are my suggestions for now.
Wow, man. Right on, dude. I love that. And how about music? You got anything you're listening to currently you might want to just kind of throw
That's
out
where
there?
you got to help me out. I'm the worst when it comes to music. I love all kinds of music. I listen to everything. So right now I'm putting a lot more piano on my thing, and I like piano. It's
Nice.
peaceful. And
Yeah.
I like since Burning Man, I like that. But I'm one of those dummies that calls it all EDM, which it's not, because there's like thousands of different kinds. I like the chill melodic stuff.
Right on.
That's just like music that is and I can never find it. I kind of, when I find it on Spotify, I save it, but relaxing music with like the perfect hertz, with a
Mhm.
nice melody, kind of like what George makes some of this stuff. He's
Yes.
making beats. Shout out George. Thanks for putting this together.
Woo,
And he's
George.
helped me and made some amazing clips with stuff like that. Just
Yeah.
it's nice to listen to. And then I'll listen to always like, old rock, 80s, 90s.
Nice.
90s was good too. 70s rock,
Yeah.
So I kind of go over, and we'll go through, like, sometimes we'll listen to dinner and throw on like Italian dinner, shit like that.
I do
So
the same
I try to go
thing.
around. I'll even throw in like some violin. So I don't know what the heck I'm doing, man.
Yeah, if I'm cooking Italian, I'll put on some old-timey Italian music and feel, fancy or
It's
something.
fun. Yeah, it's like that's what I'm doing. Oh, and then another one I like to wake up in the morning is these Tibetan. I found this really crazy series of like Tibetan singing bowls, but they're like chants of like ohms or whatever, and it's just like Om Mani Padme Hum. They're like it's kind of like kirtan but different. Like kirtan is like the affirmations of yogi stuff. I think, I don't know, the yogis are all getting mad at me right now, something like that. But like, wake up with this like crazy oming through the house, and I'll blast that. Try to get some good vibes going. So it's very sporadic over here.
I love that. Dude, that's awesome. So what do you have coming up with yourself? You got any appearances that you're doing, or you got any books you're working on for people? What are you doing right now, my friend?
Well, right now in Canada is a bit ridiculous. So we're looking at making some big moves, trying to actually get down to the States and Mexico. So we're looking at doing some big things, because it's getting pretty communist-like up here. I'm not allowed to go shopping or to the gym or all these different things unless I have my papers, which is nuts. So looking at doing that, but the podcast is still rolling. People can always check that out.
Awesome.
If people are interested in stuff like learn about their life purpose, the Soul Compass course is phenomenal. Everything that I make it's effective. Like, it's the shit that works. I go through so much stuff to figure out what friggin' works, So if you want to be strong, 3 sets of 3 deadlift, deadlift, squat, bench press, overhead press, and just a few sets. And I can give you a workout plan and make you strong as shit. It ain't complicated. But it will work. Mental games, spiritual games, the exact same. So Soul Compass course is free in the membership. The quantum heart hypnosis, that stuff is phenomenal. And then I do a mastermind group as well. That's for people who want to dive deep, because if anyone calls me, I don't know what my life purpose is. Usually within an hour, we figured it out, because it's not a set goal. It's a direction. Asking you simple questions, and then we dig it out. The challenge is walking the path, and that's what the mastermind is for: is accountability and tools and framework. So it's like going to the gym. People can't lose weight; they don't know what to do. It doesn't matter if they don't know what to do; they just need to show up every day, and figure some shit out. Now, if you got a trainer with you that you've paid, and you're going to show up and kind of show you the ropes, once you kind of got it, you can steer it where you want. So that's the main thing I'm working on. But I think I'm gonna, once I get settled and figure out some safety for the family, there's a couple books and programs that I want to put out, and one of them might be the Law of Attraction for an Ideal World, where we use the catalyst to figure out what our purpose is, to respond to the situation, because that's what we need. We need everybody to respond to this. Let go of this stuff that's not serving. Look at all these opportunities we're having. What don't you like? I don't like this, and it's great. So what do we want? And then we work as a community, as an individual, but then that kind of spawns out to the community to really build those solutions. So I've been inspired to do that. And I think I'm going to run a webinar on that and invite people to come in, and we do that kind of process of like, look, this is an ideal world, and we go through it together. And I did that last week in my coaching call. Is really great, because you find that area that you're passionate about, and that's what you do. That's how you play your part. And when we all start doing that, we will respond to this in a magnificent way.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that, man. What's one last piece of nugget you want to leave before we part ways virtually?
Well, I appreciate this, and I love leaving the listeners with one of my favorite, the best ever spiritual teaching I have ever heard or read or know about. It is from my friend David Lombert Senepass, who's a Native American elder of the Mi'kmaq, and he said, "Do 3 kind acts a day. Go out of your way to do it, and don't tell anyone." And if everybody did that, what a world we would have. And I give the, I invite people to take the kindness challenge on the podcast, where I say, do it for a week and go out of your way. That's the whole thing. Don't tell anyone. You go out of your way. And he gave me a whole hour talk about how the body's electromagnetic. And when you do the act of kindness, it creates a charge from that person that you hit. But then if you take that charge and you go tell it from someone, then you're losing the charge. But if your body keeps it, you're in this electromagnetic field. So your vibration is raising. That's how you actually raise it. You actually have to do something.
Yes.
Right. Not just sit there, which is part of it. That's being able to open your mind and understand observation, but you need to go then do something in the field to get the charge in a meaningful way. Not that I'm going to go get this charge. It's just that you've seen the opportunity and you go do it. And when people take that challenge, often they get that universal wink. Something weird will happen to them that it's so weird and it's so random and it's so specific. You know, it was the universe, and you're like, what the hell? And I get all these emails all the time when people take up that challenge and do it. And I'm like, yes, that's amazing. And so one I like to offer people as a suggestion is when you go through the checkout and you get groceries, when someone always go through the checkout, he said, when you get someone's name, that's an act of kindness because you're addressing them. I never thought about that as an act of kindness. Now, since COVID, it makes way more sense than when you see faces. So you get their name, right? But when someone's behind you, look at what they have. And it's like, oh, I guess, yeah, I don't know. It's easy for me, but I'm like, oh, can I see those cookies? I get like a treat they have. And then I'll get them to scan it. And then I'll just go, free cookie day. And usually they think you're like, what do you do with my food? And sometimes they get all suspicious and shit. But it's just so hilarious and it makes them happy. And, it's just such a silly thing, that you can do. So if you did that, that's my suggestion. That's the best spiritual thing I've ever heard. 3 kind acts a day. Go out of your way to do it and don't tell anyone.
I love it. It's awesome. Matt Belair, thank you so much, brother. I truly appreciate our conversation, man.
Thank you so much too, man. I appreciate the invite and thanks for following the thread, doing your thing.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
And there you have it. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Matt Belair. I can't thank you enough for being on the show and just sharing some of your experiences and some of your insight. We heard about some really great stories. We heard about how he's now recently a new dad. So kudos to you and your new family. I wish you nothing but the best and great reading recommendations. Matt really drove home the importance of learning the basics of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And if we're better equipped on understanding how neuro-linguistic programming works, maybe we can detect it when maybe others are using it on us. So great recommendation there. He also recommended his own book that he authored, Zen Athlete. And I think that's wonderful because even as a musician, I make music that I want to listen to and I applaud that passion. So be sure to check out Zen Athlete by Matt Belair himself. We also learned about the life and teachings of the Masters of the Far East by Baird T. Spalding. I'm excited to check out some of those series and apparently some really wild stories. And Matt and his recent revisiting of the Bible. So those are his reading recommendations. So be sure to check some of those out. You can follow Matt Belair on Instagram at matt.belair. You can also find him on the internet at mattbelair.com. And you can be sure to check out Matt Belair's very own podcast, Mastermind, Body and Spirit. He's got a lot of great guests, and we definitely implore you to check that out. So Matt, I can't thank you enough. And all the listeners, I can't thank you all enough for all of your love and support on this journey. I'm really enjoying myself and these open dialogues so that we can have great communication and learn from one another so that we can move our consciousness together in a positive direction. It's the only way that I personally believe, and in my opinion, we can really break down those walls of division and polarization. If you're listening, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you can find out about new episodes that are coming out. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at itd.jcosta, as well as on Twitter at itd_jcosta. And until next time, please continue to take care of one another and keep thinking for yourself.